The town square roared with sound. Boots stamped the wooden planks. A brass bell clanged, calling every eye to the stage. The sun burned hot, baking dust into the crowd's throat. On the stage stood a man in iron chains. His hair hung in dark knots. Red dust clung to bruises across his arms. He looked beaten, but his eyes burned like fire. Sheriff Grant, the lawman of the town, raised his whip. The leather snapped. The chained man staggered but did not fall. Sheriff Grant's voice carried, "This savage is no man. He is property. Who will buy it?" The crowd jeered. Laughter rolled across the square. Men shouted offers before the auctioneer even began. Clara, the rancher's daughter, pressed forward. The narrator speaks her name now. Clara Mason, young but stubborn, daughter of Elias Mason. Clara clutched her purse. Close. Inside lay coins her father could not spare, yet her eyes fixed on the chained man. The auctioneer lifted his ledger. "Bidding starts at $20. The crowd raised their hands. A merchant waved gold. A miner shouted more. Clara felt the weight of her mother's silver locket under her collar, the proof token of her family's past. She remembered her mother's voice. "Mercy is worth more than land." Sheriff Grant pushed the chained man down. "Bow Savage." The crowd laughed. Children pointed. The man lifted his head slowly. His voice was low but strong. "I bow to no one." The square froze. Silence cuts the heat. A twist. The captive spoke like any other man. Clara's breath caught. The auctioneer faltered, pen hovering. Sheriff Grant's jaw clenched. "Then you will bleed." He raised the whip again. Clara stepped forward. Elias Mason, her father, grabbed her arm. "Stay back," he hissed, but Clara pulled free. "He is not an animal," she whispered. Elias shook his head. "Our land is dying. Do not waste coins on this." The chained man's eyes found Clara. He did not beg. He simply stood, chains rattling in the light. Clara's heart pounded. Every shout in the square seemed far away. She looked at her purse. The leather strap dug into her palm like iron. The auctioneer called again. $50, who bids?" More hands shot up. Sheriff Grant sneered. "He is worthless. Sell him cheap." Clara remembered the nights her father cursed unpaid debts. She remembered the drought that cracked their fields. And she remembered her mother's locket shining like hope. The words came unbidden. "A man is still a man." The purse shook in Clara's hand. She pushed through the crowd. Dirt scuffed her dress. Men turned, shocked. A boy snickered. Clara lifted her chin. Her voice trembled but did not break. "Don't hurt him." Sheriff Grant turned, whip frozen mid-air. The crowd stared. The auctioneer blinked. Clara lifted the purse high. "I'll buy him." Gasps erupted. A woman covered her mouth. A miner swore. The auctioneer dropped his pen. The chained man's eyes locked on hers, fierce and alive. Sheriff Grant's whip fell to his side. Clara Mason's hand tightened around her purse. She was about to do something no one expected. The square exploded with noise. Men shouted. Women hissed. A boy threw a stone at the ground near Clara Mason's feet. Dust rose in the hot air. Elias Mason, the weary rancher, grabbed Clara's arm hard. His voice cut low. "You ruined us." Elias pulled her back from the stage. His face was red with anger, but Clara's eyes stayed fixed on the chained man. Sheriff Grant waved his hand. "Give her the savage. She'll learn soon enough." The guards shoved the captive forward. Iron links rattled as he fell to his knees. Clara stepped forward. The narrator speaks his name now, Nathan Hale. Nathan, once called Savage, stared at the crowd with quiet rage. Clara Mason knelt and forced the key into the cuff locks. Her hands shook. The metal scraped. At last, the cuffs fell. The crowd laughed louder. A tall miner jeered, "The girl bought herself trouble." Nathan Hale stood slowly. Clara reached for her water flask. She held it toward him. Nathan did not take it. His silence pressed heavier than words. Clara looked at Elias Mason, the rancher. Elias shook his head in disgust. From the back of the crowd, a shove turned into fists. A fight broke out between two bidders. Men stumbled against Clara. She was shoved to the ground. Her silver locket slipped from her neck. The proof token, her mother's gift, landed in the dirt. Clara scrambled to rise. Elias Mason yelled, "Leave it, move!" But Nathan Hale bent down. His rough hands lifted the silver locket. Dust coated the chain, but Nathan brushed it away with care. The crowd jeered again, but Nathan ignored them. Clara froze. That locket was her most precious memory of her mother. Nathan Hale held it gently, not like a thief, but like someone who understood loss. His eyes met Clara's. His voice was quiet, but sharp. "Why save me?" The square hushed. Even Elias Mason turned to stare. Clara could not answer. She saw not a savage, but a man, taller, wounded, yet alive with pride. Nathan's grip on the locket tightened, as if it carried a story he already knew. Elias Mason shoved Clara toward the wagon. "Enough! We are leaving!" The crowd shouted insults, but none dared block their path. Sheriff Grant smirked as they passed. "You'll regret this." Clara Mason reached for the locket. Nathan Hale did not give it back. His eyes narrowed as if the token meant more than she knew. The wagon rattled out of the town square. Dust trailed behind the wheels, curling in the hot air. Horses pulled steady, their hooves striking sharp against stone. The noise of the crowd faded, leaving only the creak of wood and the jangle of chains. Elias Mason, the rancher, held the reins tight. His face was set hard, his jaw grinding. Beside him sat his daughter, Clara Mason. Clara's hands rested on her lap, still clutching, the purse she had emptied. Next to Clara sat Nathan Hale, the man once called Savage. Nathan's wrists still carried the marks of iron cuffs, though the chains hung loose now. Elias Mason broke the silence first. "You have shamed us, Clara. You have risked our land for a stranger." Elias spat dust from his mouth. His voice was sharp like a whip. Clara glanced at him. "He is not a stranger. He is a man." Elias slammed the reins against the wood. "A man who will ruin us." Nathan Hale turned his head slightly, watching the road. Nathan did not speak. His eyes moved from the fences to the barns they passed, as if he measured every distance. Clara Mason noticed. Clara whispered, "You're safe now." Nathan did not answer. His silence felt heavier than chains. The wagon rolled past a dry creek bed. The cracked earth stretched wide. Elias Mason muttered, "Even the land dies under bad choices." Clara Mason looked down, her fingers brushing her silver locket. The proof token glinted once in the sun before slipping back beneath her dress. Nathan Hale saw the movement. His eyes narrowed, remembering how he had held that same locket hours before. A jolt rocked the wagon. One wheel struck a deep rut. Clara clutched the bench. Nathan braced his arms. Elias Mason cursed and pulled the reins hard. The horses whinnied. Clara tried again. "Father, he saved my locket." "He could have kept it." Elias shook his head. "A trick to win your trust, nothing more." Nathan's eyes flicked to Elias. Nathan said nothing. From the ridgeline above, shadows shifted. 3 bandits crouched low against the rocks. Their eyes followed the wagon. One bandit lifted a spyglass. Another set a rifle across his knee. The third grinned wide, showing broken teeth. Nathan Hale's gaze turned sharply toward the hills. His eyes caught the glint of sunlight flashing on steel. He leaned back slightly, watching without a word. Clara Mason noticed his stillness. "What is it?" she asked. Nathan did not reply. Elias Mason barked, "Speak if you have something to say." Nathan only shook his head. He wanted to see if the rancher could sense danger on his own. The wagon rolled on, wheels grinding deeper into the dirt path. Clara Mason looked from her father's rigid face to Nathan's steady eyes. The air grew heavier, as if the land itself waited. Elias Mason muttered again, "This choice will destroy us." Clara looked at Nathan. Nathan still scanned the ridge, measuring every shadow. Then the sun struck a rifle barrel. For a split second the light flashed bright. Nathan Hale's jaw tightened. He had seen it. The bandits had guns trained on the wagon. From the hills, rifles glinted under the sun. Night dropped heavy over the Mason ranch. The wind pressed against the dry grass. A lantern swung by the barn door, its light swaying like a heartbeat. Elias Mason, the rancher, slept inside the small house. Clara Mason walked the yard with a blanket around her shoulders. Nathan Hale The chained man freed earlier that day sat near the barn post. Nathan's eyes stayed sharp, scanning the dark. The silence cracked with the snap of a twig. Nathan Hale's head turned. From the shadows came shapes. Bandits. 5 men crept low, rifles in hand, their faces hid under scarves. One bandit raised a pistol toward Clara Mason. Nathan Hale moved before words were spoken. "Down!" Nathan shouted. Clara dropped to the dirt as a shot split the air. The bullet tore through her blanket. Sparks flared off the barn wall. Clara gasped. Elias Mason burst out of the door with his rifle. "Who's there?" Elias shouted. The bandits charged. Nathan Hale swung a heavy chain, wrapping it around one man's arm. Nathan yanked hard. The bandit crashed into the dust. Clara Mason scrambled toward the wagon. Another bandit aimed at her back. Nathan lunged, slamming the man into the side rail. Wood splintered. Clara Mason looked at Nathan with wide eyes. "You saved me." Nathan grabbed her arm and pulled her behind the wagon. "Stay low," Nathan said. Elias Mason fired once, striking a bandit's hat clean off. The outlaws shouted curses. 2 men retreated into the shadows, leaving one sprawled on the ground. The fallen bandit clutched at his torn coat. Something slipped from the cloth. Clara Mason's lantern light caught it, a scrap of paper, stained and ripped. A map. Strange markings cut across the lines, circles drawn around water wells, trails, marked with X's. Clara bent to reach for it, but Nathan Hale stepped first. Nathan lifted the paper. The proof token of this fight was now in his hand. Nathan studied the marks under the lantern glow. His jaw tightened. "This is no simple raid," Nathan said. Clara Mason frowned. "What do you mean?" The wounded bandit crawled back, cursing. Elias Mason pressed his rifle against the man's chest. "Talk," Elias growled. The bandit spat blood and silence. Nathan Hale's eyes stayed on the paper. His grip on the map hardened. Clara Mason touched her silver locket at her chest, recalling how Nathan had once held it with care. Now Nathan held another token, one that might decide their fate. Clara whispered, "Why would bandits mark water? And land?" The bandit tried to rise, but Nathan pressed him back with the chain. Nathan's voice dropped low, steady as stone. "Because this wasn't random." Nathan raised the map high enough for Elias Mason to see. Strange symbols caught. The lantern light again. Elias Mason stared. Clara Mason's breath quickened. The ranch was not the only target. Something larger waited in those markings. Nathan Hale's voice was cold. This wasn't random. The fire burned low in the Mason ranch yard. The night air smelled of smoke and gunpowder. The torn map lay spread across the wagon bench, its strange marks lit by the lantern glow. Clara Mason sat close, her silver locket pressing warm against her chest. Nathan Hale leaned over the paper, his scarred hands steady. Elias Mason, the rancher, paced the dirt with his rifle in hand. The silence between them held sharp edges. Nathan Hale spoke first. "These marks are not random trails. These are hunting paths. My people were hunted the same way. Bandits cut off water, then burned the land." Nathan tapped the map. "Here. And here. They circle wells first, they starve the ranchers next." Elias Mason stopped pacing. Elias's voice rose. "Your people? You mean outlaws? You mean thieves?" Clara Mason shook her head quickly. "No, father, he's warning us." Elias Mason snapped back. "He is using you. Can't you see?" Nathan Hale met Elias's stare. Nathan's voice was calm but firm. "The same men who broke my village now ride for your ranch. You think I lie? Ask the ground, ask the bones left in the dust." The words cut deep. Clara Mason's eyes widened. She remembered the rifle flash on the ridge. She remembered the way Nathan had pulled her down before the shot struck. Clara said, "He saved me, father. If Nathan wanted me dead, I would already be gone." Elias Mason muttered, "A trick." Clara touched her silver locket, recalling the moment Nathan had lifted it from the dirt with care. "No trick," Clara whispered. "Nathan respects life more than those bandits ever will." Nathan Hale tapped the paper again. The torn map, the proof token, showed clear circles around Mason land. Nathan said, "Your ranch is next." Elias Mason grabbed the map from Nathan's hands. Elias studied the markings. His face lost color. "Why would they want our land?" Nathan's voice dropped. "Water. The creek runs through here. Take the ranch, control the land, and the whole valley bends." Clara Mason stared at the paper. She traced the X's with her finger. Each mark looked closer to home. A new sound cut the night. Horses. Hooves on the far road. Elias Mason raised his rifle, ready. But the riders did not attack. They passed along the ridge. Clara saw lanterns sway. One rider lifted his head. The sheriff's had caught the moonlight. Sheriff Grant. Clara Mason's heart dropped. "Father, look." Elias Mason squinted. Sheriff Grant rode alongside two of the same bandits they had fought earlier. The group spoke in low voices, then split. The sheriff turned toward town. The bandits rode back into the hills. Elias Mason cursed. "It can't be." Clara Mason's voice shook. "It is. The sheriff works with them." Nathan Hale clenched his fist. "Now you see. He sells your land with their guns." Elias Mason lowered his rifle, his face twisted with doubt. Clara Mason stepped closer to Nathan. "He was right, Father. Every word was right." Elias Mason looked away, shame fighting pride. The fire crackled. The torn map flapped in the night wind. Clara Mason whispered the truth, her voice cold. "The sheriff is coming for us next." Morning light spilled over the Mason ranch. The fields stretched dry and cracked. Clara Mason carried buckets to the well, her silver locket glinting against her dress. Nathan Hale stood near the barn, mending a broken hinge with quiet strength. Elias Mason, the rancher, watched them both, his face drawn with sleepless worry. Hooves pounded down the trail. Sheriff Grant rode in with two deputies. Dust rose behind them. Sheriff Grant swung from the saddle, boots crunching hard on the dirt. His smile was thin, his eyes sharp. "Elias," Sheriff Grant said, "you've got troubles. Bandits want your land, but I can fix that." Elias Mason stepped forward, rifle resting against his shoulder. "What do you want?" Elias asked. Sheriff Grant's hand rested on his belt. "Simple, give me the savage. Hand Nathan over, and I'll keep your ranch safe." Clara Mason froze by the well. "You can't," Clara whispered. Elias Mason's jaw tightened. Sheriff Grant pressed harder. "Think of your daughter. Think of your land. That man is the reason the bandits came. Hand him to me and you'll never see them again." Elias Mason looked at Nathan Hale. Nathan's hands stilled on the hinge. His eyes gave nothing away. Clara Mason rushed forward. "Father, no. You know he saved us. You know he warned us." Elias Mason did not answer. The weight of debts, drought, and fear bent his shoulders. Sheriff Grant stepped closer. "Choose, Elias. The ranch or the savage. You can't have both." Elias Mason's rifle lowered an inch. His breath came heavy. Clara's heart pounded. "Father, please," Clara cried. "Mother would never forgive this." Elias Mason turned away from Clara. Elias's hand trembled near the map tucked inside his coat. The proof token of danger weighed on him. Sheriff Grant smirked. "You know the right choice." Elias Mason's lips moved. "If I give him over, the land survives." Nathan Hale lifted his head. "So you would trade me?" Nathan's voice was low, steady. Elias Mason couldn't meet his eyes. "Clara," Mason gasped. She stepped between her father and Nathan. "Stop! He's not for sale, not for trade. He is a man, Father. He is worth more than fields and fences," Elias Mason snapped. "You don't understand. I lost everything once. I will not lose this ranch, too." Clara grabbed her father's arm. "You'll lose me if you do." The words hung sharp in the air. Sheriff Grant laughed cold. "A family split in two. How sweet." He motioned to his deputies. "Take him now." The deputies stepped forward. Nathan Hale stood still, waiting, but Clara Mason raised her voice, strong and clear. "Touch him and you'll fight me too." The deputies stopped. Sheriff Grant's smirk faltered. Elias Mason looked at his daughter, torn between blood and land. The silence broke. Elias Mason stepped back. "Leave my land, Sheriff. I'll decide my own fate." Sheriff Grant's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this." Sheriff Grant turned, mounted his horse, and rode off with his men. Dust settled. The ranch fell quiet again. Elias Mason turned to Clara. "You would defy me." "For him?" Clara's voice shook but did not break. "I would defy anyone who forgets mercy." Nathan Hale's eyes lingered on Elias Mason. Then Nathan turned his back. His voice was flat, bitter. "If even your own blood doubts you, why fight?" The night carried no stars. Clouds pressed low, smothering the moon. Clara Mason stood by the corral, her silver locket resting against her chest. Nathan Hale leaned against the barn wall, a chain coiled in his hand. Elias Mason, the rancher, sat by the porch, pipe unlit, eyes fixed on the horizon. The first torch arced through the air. It struck the haystack, flames leaping high. A second torch smashed against the barn door. Fire spread fast, licking up the dry wood. Elias Mason shouted, "We're under attack!" The ranch exploded into chaos. Bandits rushed from the dark, rifles firing, faces hidden under scarves. Nathan Hale moved first. He swung the iron chain wide. The chain cracked against a bandit's jaw. Bone snapped. Another outlaw lunged with a knife. Nathan wrapped the chain around the man's wrist and yanked him hard to the ground. Clara Mason ran to the corral. The cattle bellowed, trapped in firelight. Clara threw open the gate, slapping reins and shouting, "Go! Run!" The herd burst through, scattering into the night. Bullets sparked against the fence. Clara ducked low. Elias Mason tried to fire. His rifle, but smoke blinded him. Flames spread across the porch roof. A beam cracked and fell, pinning Elias by the leg. "Clara!" Elias cried out. Clara rushed toward him, but sparks rained down, forcing her back. Nathan Hale broke through the smoke, chains spinning like a whip. He struck one bandit aside and slammed another against the barn wall. Clara saw him turn, eyes locking on her. Clara's locket flashed bright in the firelight. At that moment, a bullet hissed toward her. Nathan leapt, throwing his body between Clara and the shot. The round grazed his arm, but his frame shielded her. Clara clutched her locket. "Nathan," she whispered. The barn roof roared, flames eating through. Nathan grabbed Clara's wrist. "Move," he commanded. Together they dragged Elias Mason free of the beam. Elias staggered, coughing, his face streaked with soot. Nathan shoved him toward the corral. "Get out!" But the bandits pressed harder. One raised a rifle from the shadows, aiming at Clara. Nathan's chain lashed forward, wrapping the barrel. He yanked it aside, the shot blasting harmless into the dirt. Nathan's fist followed, dropping the bandit. Cold Clara pushed Elias toward the wagon. Smoke blinded her eyes. Her silver locket glowed red in the reflection of the fire. The proof token burned like a beacon. She remembered how Nathan had once held it in his hand, gentle even in violence. Now the locket gleamed as he saved her life again. The cattle thundered into the open fields. The ranch behind them collapsed, fire chewing through beams and shingles. Clara turned back once, tears streaming, watching her home fall. Elias Mason shouted, "Keep moving!" Nathan Hale stood firm in the smoke, chain dripping with blood. He faced the burning yard with calm, his body between the Mason family and the attackers. Flames curled around the barn, lighting the night like a furnace. Then a figure appeared through the haze. Boots crunched over broken wood. A long coat swayed in the wind. Clara narrowed her eyes. The outline of a wide-brim hat cut against the fire. Her heart froze. Through smoke, Sheriff Grant's silhouette appeared. The flames still roared across the Mason ranch. Smoke rolled thick, choking the air. Sheriff Grant stepped forward through the haze, boots striking ash, his pistol gleaming in firelight. Clara Mason clutched her silver locket tight against her chest. Nathan Hale coiled his chain, eyes locked. On the sheriff. Elias Mason leaned against the wagon, leg bloodied, his breath ragged. Sheriff Grant smirked. "Elias, you had your chance. Hand me the savage now, and maybe I'll leave your girl alive." Elias Mason raised his rifle, but his hands shook. Clara Mason stepped in front of him. "You won't touch him," Clara shouted. Nathan Hale's voice cut low. "Stay back, Clara." The sheriff moved fast, pistol snapping up. Nathan Hale lunged, swinging the chain. The iron links smashed the pistol aside. The gun fired into the dirt, sparks jumping. Sheriff Grant countered with a punch to Nathan's jaw. Nathan staggered but swung again, chain whistling. The sheriff ducked and drove a boot into Nathan's ribs. Clara Mason pulled Elias Mason away from the burning barn as a roof beam collapsed where they stood. Elias stumbled, coughing. Clara shouted, "Father, move!" Elias leaned hard on her shoulder, weight dragging her down. Behind them, Nathan and Grant fought like wolves. Nathan. Hale wrapped the chain around the sheriff's arm. He yanked hard, pulling the sheriff close. The two men slammed together, fists flying. Sheriff Grant grabbed Nathan's wound from the night before, forcing him to groan. The sheriff's grin widened. "You're no man. You're just a beast. Thin chains." Nathan's eyes flared. He twisted, driving the sheriff into the dirt. Clara Mason dragged Elias Mason to the wagon. She turned back, fear tearing through her. Sheriff Grant reached into the dirt and snatched a blade from a fallen bandit. Steel flashed. Nathan swung the chain. The blade caught, sparks flying. The men locked, steel against iron, firelight throwing shadows across their faces. Elias Mason groaned. "Leave me, Clara. Save yourself." Clara shook her head, gripping his arm tighter. "No, Father, we stand together." Elias Mason's eyes shifted. He looked toward Nathan, still fighting in the flames. For the first time, Elias whispered, "The man is fighting for us." Nathan Hale shoved the sheriff back. The chain cracked against Grant's chest. The sheriff stumbled, gasping. But then the twist came. Sheriff Grant's hand shot out, grabbing Clara Mason by the arm. He dragged her forward, pressing the blade against her throat. The fire painted his grin. "Drop the chain," Sheriff Grant hissed. Clara gasped, her silver locket shining in the glow. Nathan froze, chain in hand. Elias Mason tried to rise, but collapsed again. "Clara!" Elias shouted. Clara's voice trembled. "Don't do it, Nathan!" Sheriff Grant pressed the blade tighter. "One move, Savage, and she dies." Nathan's chest rose and fell. The fire roared louder. Smoke curled around them. Nathan Hale's grip on the chain loosened. He lowered his arm. His voice was quiet, steady, final. "Take me instead." The fire at the Mason ranch still smoldered, but dawn pushed light over the valley. Smoke curled above the ruins. Clara Mason stood shaking, Sheriff Grant's blade still glinting near her throat. Nathan Hale faced him, chain hanging loose in his hands. Elias Mason leaned against the wagon, bleeding, struggling to rise. Clara's eyes flashed. In one swift move, she tore free of the sheriff's grip. She spun and grabbed Elias Mason's fallen rifle from the dirt. The barrel lifted, steady though her hands shook. Clara leveled it at Sheriff Grant. "End this now," Clara said, voice raw. Sheriff Grant froze, eyes darting from the chain in Nathan Hale's fist to the rifle in Clara's hands. Nathan stepped closer. "Clara," Nathan said, voice low. "Don't." Clara's breath came quick. Her silver locket bounced against her chest, glowing faint in the morning sun. "You don't understand," Clara said. "He burned our home. He tried to kill us." Sheriff Grant smirked, even with the gun in his face. "Do it, girl. Prove you're just as savage as him." Nathan Hale's eyes locked on Clara. His words were heavy, each one cut clear. "If you kill, you're like him. You're not fighting for mercy anymore. You're fighting for hate." Clara's grip tightened on the rifle. Elias Mason groaned, forcing himself upright. "Clara, listen." A hush fell. The town had gathered along the ridge, drawn by the flames. Neighbors, ranchers, and children stared in silence at the scene. The proof token, the torn map, was nailed to the wagon side where everyone could see. Circles around wells, marks across ranches, the sheriff's betrayal plain as day. Clara's heart pounded. The rifle was heavy in her hands. Nathan Hale stepped closer, his voice calm. "Clara, look at me. You saved me once because you saw a man, not a beast. Don't lose that now." Tears streaked Clara's face. She raised the barrel higher. Sheriff Grant snarled. "She doesn't have it in her." His hand twitched toward his belt. Clara's breath hitched. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Then Clara lowered the rifle. The decision cut sharper than a blade. "No," Clara whispered. "You'll answer for this, Sheriff, but not with blood." She stepped back, lowering the gun. "Nathan." Hale's eyes softened. Sheriff Grant lunged in fury, but Nathan's chain snapped forward, wrapping his arm. Nathan yanked him down into the dirt. Elias Mason staggered over and kicked the sheriff's blade away. The deputies from town ran forward, now ashamed. They seized Sheriff Grant, dragging him to his feet. His curses filled the air. The townsfolk murmured as the truth spread. "The sheriff sold us out," one man hissed. "He marked our wells," another growled. The torn map flapped in the wind, the final proof of betrayal. Elias Mason stood tall despite his wounds. He looked at Nathan Hale, and for the first time spoke without hate. "You are a man, a better man than me." Nathan's chest rose with quiet pride, but he said nothing. The crowd's whispers grew louder. They did not say savage now, they said Nathan. The sound rolled through the people like a tide. The crowd whispered Nathan's name, not savage, but man. The sun rose over the blackened beams of the Mason ranch. Smoke drifted in soft threads across the valley. The ground was scarred, but the land was still theirs. Clara Mason stood by the well, her silver locket once more fastened around her neck. The token rested steady against her chest, warm in the morning light. Elias Mason leaned against the wagon, his leg bound, his face worn. He watched his daughter with quiet eyes. For the first time in years, Elias's anger was gone. His voice was low. "You were right, Clara. Mercy holds more weight than land." Clara touched the locket and nodded. "Mother taught us that." Nathan. Hale walked from the barn, shoulders squared, chain coiled at his side. The smoke clung to his clothes, but his gaze was clear. Neighbors gathered at a distance, whispering his name. Not Savage, just Nathan. The shame of Sheriff Grant's betrayal still hung heavy in the air, but the truth had spread. The ranchers now looked at Nathan Hale with respect. Elias Mason stepped forward, limping. "I misjudged you," Elias said. "You saved Clara. You saved me. You saved what little we still have." Nathan nodded once. "Your land is safe for now, but more danger will come. Greed never sleeps." Elias dropped his gaze. "Then I will be ready, and I will not face it with hate." Clara Mason moved closer. "Will you stay?" she asked softly. Nathan looked toward the horizon. "I can't. My people are scattered. I have to find them, but I will return." Clara's hand lifted, holding her locket. She remembered when Nathan had once held it gently in his hand, the first sign he saw her as more than an enemy. "Nathan," Hale stepped closer, his voice steady. "Keep the locket bright. Let it remind you who you are." Clara whispered, "And who you are too." Their eyes held. No words could fill the silence between them. Nathan turned away, walking toward the ridgeline. The crowd parted as he passed. Children watched wide-eyed, whispering his name again. Not Savage, not prisoner, just Nathan. His steps carried him into the rising sun, chain glinting like iron fire in his hand. Elias Mason placed a hand on Clara's shoulder. "I called him less than a man. I was wrong. You saw clearer than me." Clara kept her gaze on the ridgeline. "He was worth saving." The locket gleamed, and Clara whispered, "Nathan was worth saving."